Hello, everyone. Welcome to Understanding the Basics for Implementing Research to Any Field of Study mini course, part 2. Um, let's begin part 2 by talking about the types of literature review. The first type we have here is argumentative review. We have many other types like integrative, historical review, methodological, systematic, and so on. Let's talk about one by one. So the first type we have here is the argumentative review. Well, this form examines literature selectively in order to support or refute an argument, deeply embedded assumption, or philosophical problem already established in the literature. So the purpose is to develop a body of literature that establishes a contrarian viewpoint, given the value-laden nature of some social science research, such as you can say educational reform, immigration control. Also, argumentative approaches to analyze the literature can be a legitimate and important form of discourse. However, note that they can also introduce problems of bias when they are used to make summary claims of the sort found in systematic reviews. The second type of literature review we have is integrative review. Well, considered a form of research that reviews, critiques, synthesizes representative literature on a topic in an integrated way. That's why we call it integrative, such that new frameworks and perspectives on the topic are generated. Well, the body of literature includes all studies that address related or identical hypotheses or research problems. A well-done integrative review meets the same standards as primary research in regard to clarity, rigor, and application. This is the most common form of review, by the way, in the social sciences. This is according to Mark Fink, 2005. Well, the third type of literature review we have here is historical review. Well, as you can see, the key characteristics of the historical review, we have here a few things rest in isolation from historical precedent. Historical literature reviews focus on examining research throughout a period of time, often starting with the first time an issue, concept, theory, phenomena emerged in the literature, then tracing its evolution with the scholarship of a discipline. The purpose is to place research in historical context to show familiarity with state-of-the-art developments and to identify the likely directions for future research. Let's move on and talk about the fourth type we have here, which is the methodological review. Well, this kind of review, it does not always focus on what someone said, which is kind of the outcomes or the findings, but how they came about saying what they say, which is a method of analysis. So reviewing methods of analysis provides a framework of understanding at different levels, like through the theory, substantive fields, research approaches, and data collection and analysis techniques. How researchers draw upon a wide variety of knowledge ranging from the conceptual level of practical documents for use in field work in the areas of ontological and epistemological consideration, quantitative and qualitative integration, sampling, interviewing, data collection, and data analysis. So this approach helps highlight ethical issues which you should be aware of and consider as you go through your own study. We have another type of literature review, which is systematic review. And it consists of an overview of existing evidence. This evidence should be pertinent to a clearly formulated research question, which uses pre-specified and standardized methods to identify and critically appraise relevant research and collect, report, analyze data from the study that are included in the review. The goal is to deliberately document, critically evaluate, and summarize scientifically all of the research about a clearly defined research problem. Typically, it focuses on a very specific empirical question, often posed in a cause and effect form, such as we can say, to what extent does A contribute to B, for example. This type of literature review is primarily applied to examining prior research studies in clinical medicine and allied health fields. But it is increasingly being used in the social sciences. And this is according also to Mark Fink, 2005. Well, let's go to, this is the last type of literature review, which is called theoretical review. And theoretical comes from the word theory. Let's begin with theory examination. Well, a review does not always focus on what someone said, as we said before. So that's why the purpose of this form is to examine the theory that has accumulated in regard to an issue, concept, theory, phenomena. Well, the theoretical literature review helps to establish what theories already exist, the relationships, between them, to what degree the existing theories have been investigated, and to develop new hypotheses to be tested. Often this form is used to help establish a lack of appropriate theories, to reveal that current theories are inadequate for explaining new or emerging research problems. The unit of analysis can focus on a theoretical concept or a whole theory or a framework. Let's move on here and talk about the research paradigms related to the field of education. And this is an important chapter in your research journey. We have here in paradigms, of course, we're talking about, related to the field of education. We have two different paradigms, the Positivism, according to Weber 2004, and Interpretivism, according to Bryan 2011. Let's begin with Positivism. Well, positivists believe that reality is separate from the individual who observes it. That's what they believe in. They apparently consider subject, which is, the researcher, and object, the phenomena in the world, as to be two, separate, independent things. So positivistic ontology is supposed to be a dualistic in nature, because we're talking here about the subject, which is the researcher, and the object, which is the phenomena in the world. And that's why we call it dualistic ontology. In a positivist view of the world, science is the way to get at the truth and understand the world. The world and the universe are, deterministic, based on the results of the studies. Theory doesn't fit the facts, so we need the theory to better predict reality. The positivist is focused on empiricism, the idea that observation and measurement was the core of the scientific endeavor. The key approach of the scientific method is the experiment and the attempt to discern natural laws through direct manipulation and observation. So this is in short what we call positivism. In Interpretivism, according to Bryan 2011, positivists, on the other hand, believe that reality is separate from the individual who observes it. They apparently consider subject, which is the researcher, and the object, the phenomena, which is according to positivism, is different here, because interpretivists think that reality is not objectively but is socially constructed, and that's the difference we have. So they view reality as socially constructed rather than objectively fixed, like positivists. So the underlying assumption is that by placing people in their social context, there is greater opportunity to understand the perception they have of their own, activists or activities. Well, interpretivism as a research paradigm promotes the value of quantitative data in pursuit of knowledge, according to Kaplan and Maxwell. It is concerned with the uniqueness of a particular situation, pursuing the contextual depth. So this is, we call it contextual depth. It emphasizes contextual depth and situational uniqueness. Interpretivism is acknowledged for its value in providing contextual depth. However, it's often criticized in terms of validity, reliability, and the ability to generalize, referred to as, collectively as research legitimization. So now we talked about the types of literature review. We talked about, research paradigms. Now we move on to research problem and identifying it. For an effective research process, doctoral students or PhD or master degrees or even bachelor degree students from any field of study must be able to identify and clearly state a research problem. This is very important step in your research journey. And well, the research purpose of the study. So you have to state the research problem, an issue of concern, and the research purpose of the study. We consider them, foundation of research. Research problem. So to understand the research problem, we have to begin with a problem statement, which is a brief discussion of a problem or observations, identifying, documenting the need for any importance of the study. While describing and documenting the problem, appropriate published resources such as available statistics from surveys indicating an issue of concern in your area of research, or relevant scholarly sources such as highlight the importance of research due to other limitations. Well, a lack of research alone is not a compelling problem. Many things are not studied, but do not necessarily warrant research. The documented problem identified may be a practical problem or issue in the profession or study context for which there is not already an acceptable solution in explanation. In defining the problem, a clear discrepancy must be drawn between that which exists currently and that which is desired. So the problem reflects a clear gap between current conditions and desired outcomes. Well, let's talk about the components of a strong research problem. Well, number one is current and relevant to the field, which is to be up to date, grounded in previous research and observation. So evidence of past research is very, very important, which leads us to the researchable, with a known or probable solution, which is supported by peer-reviewed and credible sources, demonstrates originality and contribution for future research. So scholarly, peer-reviewed, and other sources documenting, the existence of a problem worthy to be searched. Well, for better understanding of the research problem, let's talk about the statement, research purpose statement. Well, the purpose statement provides the reader with a concise overview of the research project. So it clarifies the intended direction and scope of the study. And it requires prior decision regarding the research approach, target population, data collection, research setting, industry context. So that was it for part 2. Thank you so much for following and listening, and I hope you got a clear overview of this mini course, and I see you in other courses later on. See ya.